a otra entrevista en nuestro ciclo. Acá en esta oportunidad tenemos el honor de tenerlo a Rob Siganto, que es el Executive Chairman en Scottsdale. Estamos en el Yao Yao y vamos a conversar un poquito con él acerca de él, de Scottsdale y del steel frame. So Rob, I welcomed already to Argentina, so now welcome to Patagonia. And would you care to give us some background on yourself?
Yeah. Thank you, Andres. I feel very welcome in Argentina. We've been here a week and have just had a spectacular visit so far.
Our pleasure.
I'm Rob Siganto. I'm the Executive Director at Scottsdale. My background actually came from a fabricator. I was part, or still am part, of a company called Australian Framing Solutions, who is our largest fabricator using Scottsdale technology in Australia. They're a big volume fabricator doing somewhere around 4 million lineal metres of steel per year. And that equates to about 1,500 houses or small or townhouses. We had the opportunity to work with, we had always worked with Scottsdale, but we had the opportunity to acquire the Scottsdale business in 2017, and really because we could see the opportunity in steel framing. Australia has a large presence of steel framing and it's continuing to grow, and we could see that opportunity continuing in other parts of the world. We can see it starting here in Argentina, and there's already a really strong foundation, and we are very confident that foundation will continue to build into a bigger network and bigger opportunity with steel framing. So we have just signed an agreement with Nova Fusion and Sicla, and we have been very pleased to partner with you and your company for the last 4 years. And that's been an interesting experience. We had an inquiry from Andres and his team several years ago, and that's pretty common. We get inquiries from customers and clients wanting to be not only a customer, but wanting to be our partner for that region. And we're very careful about how we choose those partners in those regions. We really want to see those partners have the skills, the expertise, but also the passion that they really understand steel framing and want to really champion that in their areas. And Andres and his team have demonstrated that. They started as a fabricator, and they've built that team with our team, and we now actually see them as an extension of the Scottsdale team. We work very closely with Lucas and Oliver and the rest of the guys, and it's working quite well. We understand, at Scottsdale, we understand of course machinery and software, but we're not as close to the actual region as what Andres and his team can do. So we see that as a great partnership with the two companies, and we're very confident that's going to be successful, and we'll continue to work together for several more years.
Thank you. We're very pleased to be working with Scottsdale all these years, and I hope we can do this for a long time. Back to AFS and Australia, you mentioned all those amazing 4 million lineal meters. How many machines do you need to build that?
Well, that's a large scale operation. They're running about 17, 18 roll formers. Let me qualify that. They have about 17 or 18 roll formers. They're really only running 2/3 of those at once, but have the capacity when they need to actually ramp up to run all 18 at once. They have that in one main site and 2 satellite sites, and they have a catchment area of around about 200 kilometres from their main site, where they can provide deliveries and supply in that area.
In your experience, is Australia the biggest market when it comes to LSG?
It is for us. It's absolutely for Scottsdale. I think it's those different factors around the acceptance of light gauge steel, and for the area where light gauge steel is playing in is really the alternative is timber, and it's been a slow, gradual increase in market share, but especially over the last 2 years, we've seen that increase significantly in terms of that market share of light gauge steel over timber. And that's just in a lot of cases, it's a cultural thing that people they're used to timber, they're happy with timber, and construction is a very conservative industry that they don't like change that much. So it's happening. It's happening well in Australia, especially as I said, more in the last couple of years, and we're seeing that in other regions, North America, especially. And we're actually quite excited about the South American market and what you're doing here, and we are expecting that to follow over time.
As some of our followers may be watching this video now and wondering to get into becoming a fabricator, sorry. How could you explain why to choose Scottsdale?
Right. Well, that was one of the reasons behind our acquisition of the Scottsdale business. So there's of course 3 pillars in the Scottsdale solution. We have a incredibly advanced software system, both in the design and engineering capabilities, and we've developed that software over the last 20 years. We also have a very mature roll forming solution, which can run and produce our roll formers, as we've demonstrated, can produce up to 3,000 lineal meters in a 7-hour shift. We recently demonstrated that with our new Gen 2 machine in Brisbane. But of course the software is important, the machinery is important, but it's also the experience that we've got over the last 25 years and our experience with Australian framing solutions, that we actually understand steel framing. And working with partners like Sicla, the Sicla network and Nova Fusion, we can use that experience to share with other customers.
What would you think is the most important strength when it comes to Scottsdale's technology?
It's absolutely in the engineering capabilities of the software, and we've invested significantly in the last few years in developing that engineering software. We're about to release the new engineering software for trusses in North America, and we'll continue to develop that for trusses in different regions, and we'll follow that with panels and panel in different regions, which will eventually get to where we can start doing load transfer between trusses and panels, but also introduce third-party elements like structural steel in our engineering. But engineering is absolutely the competitive advantage of our software, because it's all about optimizing and best using steel, and having that clever engineering engine behind it is what's going to make Scottsdale give our fabricators their competitive advantage when designing buildings in light gauge steel.
How do you see the future of steel framing?
Right. There's a number of elements to that answer. First of all, steel framing will continue to increase market share in those competitive markets where we're currently the substitute. So we'll continue to grab market share from the timber providers and the concrete builders because of the benefits of steel framing that everybody's aware of. But I also think that it'll become, the technology advancements will, in my opinion, come from more integration with those other types of building products, and specifically working closer with structural steel. That's why we believe that the investment in the engineering software is so important. We believe that the buildings will become smarter with, I'm starting to blow it here, the integration with the structural steel is quite important. It's being done quite manually at the moment, and we'll continue to develop that with engineering. That's not only Scottsdale, that's the industry. The industry will continue to advance that way, working with wide gauge steel and other alternative building methods, using the best method for the specific purpose. The other part is in the whole modularisation concept. We all know and understand that it's more economical to fabricate and build off-site in a controlled environment in a factory rather than building on a construction site. Steel framing is the first part of that, and as modularisation develops and matures, we'll see that change from fabricating panels and trusses to fabricating walls, where you're insulating and cladding and putting in doors and windows in those panels, not just the steel framing. So the requirement for steel framing and detailing software to be more integrated with other packages will continue to develop, and we see that as one of our investments in the future as well.
So if I understand correctly, what you mean in the software side of this evolution, are we moving further and further to BIM technologies and integrating engineering with steel and light steel on the same software?
Yes. The short answer is yes. BIM is such a tricky concept to follow. We see a lot of interest in Revit and people using Revit as a design package. However, we're not really sold on that Revit is going to be the universal product for all people. We believe that it's important to have the ability to IFC anything in BIM and either both import and export it, and we're continuing to develop our software that can do that. We believe that's the way to go, but just trying to follow what's happening in the BIM sphere has been tricky because it's such a unpredictable area of technology at the moment.
How many people is working at Scottsdale?
We've got about 36 staff. We still maintain our manufacturing facility in New Zealand, where we build the roll forming machines. We have our software development team, primarily based in Brisbane, and then our support network is largely distributed throughout the world. So we've got support people in Brisbane, New Zealand, but also in South Africa and Portugal and North America, and through our partners with companies like Nova Fusion, we've got that ability to support customers in the South American market as well.
Excellent, and I run out of questions. Do you think about something I can ask you?
What do I think? I haven't said already. We have seen in Australia, and I'm not sure how it will replicate overseas, but a lot of home builders invest in framing technologies themselves. So rather than being supplied frames and trusses from suppliers, home builders have bought their own steel framing machinery and software to be able to provide their own. And there's two reasons for that. One is cost, and they can make it cheaper than they do buying from a supplier, but it's also the guarantee of supply and being able to actually control that and manage it a lot easier when they're doing it themselves rather than being dependent on suppliers. And so in Australia, where we've seen a large increase in the last 2 years, at least a half and possibly as many as 2/3 of those new fabricators have come from home builders who are building between 50 and 250 houses a year, and it makes sense for them to actually invest in their own ability to provide steel framings for their own projects.
Okay. Well, now comes the most important part of this interview, which will be, what do you like best from Argentina?
Oh, we arrived in Argentina 7 days ago, and we had an incredible first day, but each day has become more incredible than the previous day. The hospitality, the culture of the people, the entertainment, the food and wine has been incredible. We're fortunate enough I was fortunate enough to meet the Sicla network in Buenos Aires on the first day, and I was really impressed with the relatively small group of 10 fabricators as part of the Sicla network, and a couple of takeaways. The important things that I mentioned about Nova Fusion. Each of these groups were applying steel framing. They were being clever about it. They were being very enthusiastic about it, and they also understood the power of the Sicla network in terms of being able to do it as a group is a lot easier than trying to do it on your own. Mm-hmm. And they all seem to understand that and appreciate that. And even though most of them are in their early stages, as in have only been in steel framing for 1 or 2 years, you can see that it's more than potential. The demand's going to increase, and their chance of success is extremely high because they're showing those right traits in the first place.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to have you here and that you're sharing all this time with us. So,
thank you.
It's our pleasure to have you here.
In Australia, I haven't seen much here. We have we wear high-vis gear when we're on construction sites, and people like me who have soft hands, who work in an office, don't really often wear high-vis. However, now that Andres and I have signed the agreement, and Andres is part of the Scottsdale network, he can now wear Scottsdale high-vis. And I'd like to present him with a Scottsdale high-vis jacket.
Okay.
Which he can wear on any construction site.
I will probably use this.
I've only met Andres on video before now, and he might be a little bit smaller than I thought he was. However, I'm sure if he continues to entertain me, he will fit into that jacket very soon.
Well, it was funny for me to turn your two-dimensional picture into yourself. So, thank you very much.
So each of the Scottsdale team have one of those. So
I'm going to have a problem with this one with all my partners, but thank you very much.
Congratulations. Thank you, Andres.